The champagne flutes clinked around me, a hollow, echoing sound against the opulent backdrop of the wedding reception. "He's just a waiter," I heard Michael sneer to a group of his friends, a dismissive wave in my direction. "Not exactly the kind of company we keep." My blood ran cold. The smile froze on my face, the festive music suddenly a jarring, discordant noise. "Sophia's father?" one of them asked, tilting his head in a way that felt both condescending and curious. Michael chuckled, a low, rumbling sound that grated on my ears. "By blood, yes, but let's just say he's not exactly part of the inner circle." He lowered his voice conspiratorially, but I still heard every word, each one a sharp, stinging blow. "Wouldn't want him sullying the image, now would we?" I stood there, a statue in my own daughter's wedding suit, feeling the weight of every sacrifice I had ever made pressed down on me like a physical burden. The years of double shifts, the skipped vacations, the patched-up Schussel, so Sophia could have a better life, a life that apparently didn't include me. I saw her across the room, radiant in her white dress, laughing with a group of bridesmaids. Her eyes met mine for a fleeting moment, and I saw a flicker of something concern, guilt. It vanished as quickly as it appeared, replaced by a strained smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. I walked towards her, pushing through the throng of well-dressed guests, each of them seemingly radiating an air of effortless wealth and privilege that made me feel even more out of place. "Sophia," I said, my voice catching in my throat. She turned to me, her smile faltering. "Dad," she breathed, a hint of apprehension in her tone. "Is everything all right? I need to talk to Michael," I replied, my gaze drifting towards where he stood, holding court amongst his friends. He saw me looking and smirked, a gesture that sent a fresh wave of anger coursing through me. Sophia's hand fluttered to her chest. "Oh, Dad," she whispered, "please don't cause a scene." Her words hit me like a slap. A scene? Was it a scene to want to speak to the man who had just publicly humiliated me at my own daughter's wedding? "He insulted me, Sophia," I said, my voice low and steady. "In front of your friends, in front of his friends. He called me a waiter like it was some kind of stain." She bit her lip, her eyes darting nervously between me and Michael. "He didn't mean it like that, Dad," she pleaded. "He's just stressed. He was throwing a party that probably cost more than I made in a year, and he was stressed." I looked at Sophia, really looked at her, and saw the woman she had become, a woman who seemed to have fully embraced Michael's world, a world where I clearly didn't belong. "Sophia," I said, my voice trembling slightly, "I worked my whole life to give you everything you ever wanted. I put you through school. I paid for your apartment. I even helped with the down payment on that little villa you'd bought in Italy." I paused, the words hanging heavy in the air. "And this," I gestured around at the lavish reception, "this is how he treats me." Her eyes widened, a flicker of understanding finally breaking through the carefully constructed facade of composure. "Dad," she stammered, but I cut her off. "It's all right, Sophia," I said, forcing a smile. "I understand I didn't. Not really, but I couldn't bear to argue with her on her wedding day. I think it's best if I leave." Her face crumpled. "Dad, no," she whispered, reaching out to touch my arm. "Please don't go." But I had already made up my mind. The humiliation was too much, the realization of my place in their world too stark. "Enjoy your wedding, sweetheart," I said, My voice choked with emotion. Give Michael my congratulations. I turned and walked away, the celebratory music fading behind me, replaced by the dull ache in my chest. As I drove home, the city lights blurring through the rain-streaked windows, I thought about all the money I had poured into Sophia's life. The tuition payments, the birthday gifts, the Christmases spent working overtime so she could have the latest gadget, the prettiest doll. And then I thought about Michael, about his condescending smirk, his casual dismissal. A strange calm settled over me. He thought he was better than me. Did he? He thought his money made him superior. He had no idea. He had absolutely no idea. Rain lashed against the windows of Michael's house, mirroring the storm inside me. Hours had passed since he'd dismissed me, since he'd sneered and told me I wasn't good enough to attend my own daughter's wedding. I still clutched the small velvet box in my hand. It contained a vintage pocket watch, my father's, something I'd wanted to pass on to Sophia as a symbol of our family, of time and enduring love. I thought about calling Sophia again, but hesitated. What could I say? Your fiancé just humiliated me, but I'd still like to give you a gift. The thought felt hollow, pointless. I knew I needed to see Michael one last time. The drive back to his opulent home was a blur. Each street light seemed to mock me, each passing car a reminder of the gulf between Michael's world and mine. When I arrived, the house was ablaze with light, a stark contrast to the darkness gathering in my heart. I rang the doorbell, the chime echoing through the cavernous hallway. Michael opened the door, his expression a mixture of surprise and irritation. "What are you doing here?" he asked, his voice tight. "I wanted to give Sophia this," I said, extending the box. My hand trembled slightly. He looked at the box, then back at me, a flicker of disdain in his eyes. "Really," he scoffed, "you think a trinket like that is appropriate for this occasion? Sophia has everything she could possibly want." He made no move to take the box. "It's not just a trinket," I reply, my voice low. "It belonged to my father. It's a family heirloom." Michael shrugged. "Well, I'm sure she appreciates the sentiment," he said dismissively, "but honestly, we have a very specific aesthetic for the wedding. We don't want anything clashing." He paused, then added with a condescending smile, "Perhaps you could give it to her some other time, when she's not celebrating with her real family." The words stung, each syllable a deliberate jab at my pride. My real family, as if I were somehow less than an outsider looking in. I lowered my hand, the velvet box feeling heavy in my palm. "I understand," I said quietly, my voice betraying none of the turmoil within. "Good," Michael replied curtly. He started to close the door. "I'm sure you're busy with your work." The unspoken word hung in the air. "Waiter." "Actually," I said, stopping the door with my hand, "there's something else." I looked him directly in the eye, my gaze steady. "You seem to have a very specific idea of my financial situation." He raised an eyebrow, a smug look on his face. "Do I?" he asked. "Yes," I replied. "You seem to think that because I work hard, because I haven't accumulated the kind of wealth you have, that I'm somehow less worthy." He chuckled. "I never said that," he said, although his entire demeanor screamed otherwise. "You didn't have to," I said. "Your actions spoke volumes. But let me tell you something, Michael. You may have your fancy cars and your lavish parties, but you don't know the first thing about true worth." He opened his mouth, a retort, but I cut him off. "You think this wedding is expensive. I asked, a small, almost imperceptible smile playing on my lips. You have no idea what I've invested in Sophia's life and her future. Every penny I've earned, every extra shift I've taken, every sacrifice I've made, it's all been for her. His expression shifted, a flicker of uncertainty crossing his face. I put her through the best schools, I continued, my voice gaining strength. I paid for her music lessons, her dance classes, her trips abroad. I supported her dreams, nurtured her talents, gave her everything she needed to become the incredible woman she is today. And the sum total of all that, it dwarfs your little wedding spectacle, Michael. It absolutely dwarfs it. He stared at me, speechless. The smugness had vanished, replaced by a look I couldn't quite decipher. Perhaps it was a hint of unease, a sliver of doubt. I tucked the velvet box into my pocket. Tell Sophia I'll see her at Christmas, I said, turning to leave. I'll find a way. The rain had stopped, and the first stars were beginning to appear in the darkening sky. As I walked away, I felt a strange sense of calm settle over me. The humiliation, the anger, it was still there simmering beneath the surface, but it was overshadowed by something else, a quiet resolve, a certainty that I would find a way to connect with my daughter, regardless of Michael's petty attempts to keep us apart. He thought he had won. He thought he had put me in my place. He had no idea what was coming. Rain lashed against the dining room windows, mirroring the storm brewing inside me. Your presence at the wedding would complicate things, Michael had said, his eyes flitting around the opulent room, anywhere but at me. He'd just informed me in his detached, clinical way that I wasn't welcome my own daughter's wedding. Dinner was strained, the clinking of silverware against china echoing the hollowness in my chest. Sophia sat beside him, her face pale, her hand gripping mine under the table. Her touch was the only anchor in the swirling chaos. Michael, I began, my voice tight. Sophia wants me there. I'm her father. He finally met my gaze, a flicker of something cold in his eyes. This wedding, he stated, his voice clipped, is a celebration of our union, our future. And, frankly, your background doesn't fit the image. The words hung in the air, sharp and barbed. He picked up his wine glass, swirling the crimson liquid as if contemplating its depth, his gaze fixed on the shifting patterns within. It's best for everyone, he added, his voice softening slightly, though the underlying condescension remained. Sophia understands. Sophia squeezed my hand, her knuckles white. Dad, she began, her voice barely a whisper, but Michael cut her off. Darling, we discussed this, remember? He patted her hand, a gesture that seemed more possessive than comforting. I looked at my daughter, her eyes pleading with me to let it go, to not cause a scene. For her sake, I nodded, the word finest strangled sound in my throat. The rest of the dinner passed in a blur. Every bite of the exquisitely prepared food felt like ash in my mouth. The conversation flowed around me, Michael holding court, discussing his latest business ventures, Sophia occasionally interjecting, her smile strained. I sat there, a ghost at my own daughter's pre-wedding dinner, watching the life I'd envisioned for her slip away. I remembered Sophia as a little girl, her hand clutching mine as we walked through the park, her laughter echoing through the trees. I remembered working double shifts, sacrificing holidays and vacations to ensure she had everything she needed. The long hours waiting tables, the aching back, the constant fatigue, all endured so she could have a better life than I did. And now this opulent display of wealth, this cold dismissal of my presence, this erasure of my role in her life, the irony wasn't lost on me. I'd worked my whole life to provide for her, to give her the opportunities I never had, and now my reward was exclusion. Michael saw me as a waiter, a servant, someone unworthy of his world. He didn't see the sacrifices, the love, the years of dedication that had shaped Sophia into the woman she was today. As I sat there, amidst the crystal and silver, a quiet resolve began to take root within me. I may not be welcome at the wedding, but I would make sure Sophia knew, beyond any doubt, the depth of my love and the extent of my sacrifices. I wouldn't let Michael's shallow judgment diminish the bond we shared. The rain continued to fall, the rhythmic drumming against the windows, a steady backdrop to the turmoil in my mind. I glanced at Michael, his face flushed with wine and self-importance. He raised his glass in a toast to the future, he declared, his eyes gleaming. I didn't raise mine. My future, it seemed, was unfolding in a different direction. I looked at Sophia, her eyes meeting mine across the table. In that brief exchange, I saw a flicker of understanding, a shared sadness, and in that moment I knew that, despite Michael's attempts to erase me, my connection with my daughter remained unbroken. I excused myself, the lie of a sudden headache slipping easily from my tongue. The cool night air was a welcome relief from the suffocating atmosphere of the dining room. As I walked away, the lights of the house glowed behind me, a beacon of the life I was now excluded from. But in the darkness, something else stirred within me, a seed of defiance, a whisper of a plan. Michael might have his money, his grand wedding, his carefully curated image, but I had something he could never buy, something he could never take away, and that, I realized, was worth more than all the wealth in the world. Rain lashed against the glass of Michael's penthouse terrace, mirroring the storm inside me. "You're not welcome at the wedding, James," he'd said, his voice dripping with the same chilling indifference as the rain. "This isn't some back-alley diner. It's a celebration of elegance, of refinement." He gestured dismissively, taking in the sweeping cityscape below. "People of influence will be there." The unspoken implication hung in the air, thick and suffocating. I was clearly not one of those people of influence. The way he sneered the word diner, clear jab, but my lifelong profession stung. I swallowed the lump in my throat. "Sophia wants me there," he smirked. "Sophia wants a lot of things. This wedding gets a statement." "A statement about what, exactly?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. He finally looked at me, his eyes cold. "About my success, my ability to provide for her in a way you never could." The sting of his words was sharp, a physical blow. He continued, pacing the length of the terrace. "This wedding, James, is costing me over $200,000. $200,000, he repeated the figure as if it were some sacred mantra. The rain hammered against the glass, a relentless percussion to his pronouncements of wealth. 200,000, the number echoed in my ears. I felt a strange calmness wash over me. 200,000, it was a staggering sum, no doubt. It was also, I realized with a sudden, unsettling clarity, less than I had spent on Sophia's education, her upbringing, her life, the house we'd lived in, the small, cozy place I had scrapped and saved for, sold so she could go to that prestigious out-of-state college that alone had been close to 100,000. And then there were the years of piano lessons, the summer camps, the braces, The endless stream of school supplies, the clothes, the food, the countless little things that added up, drop by drop, to a vast ocean of love and sacrifice. Michael stopped pacing and poured himself a drink, a crystal tumbler filled with amber liquid. He offered me nothing. This wedding, he began again, swirling the liquid in his glass, is the culmination of everything I have worked for. It's a testament to my future, to the life I'm building with Sophia. He took a long sip, his eyes never leaving mine. And you, James, don't fit into that picture. 200,000. I thought about the late nights waiting tables, the aching feet, the forced smiles, the endless grind, all of it for her, for Sophia. The birthday parties I'd somehow managed to throw, the Christmas mornings filled with carefully chosen gifts, the quiet evenings spent helping her with her homework. None of it was measured in dollars, yet each moment was priceless. I understand, I finally managed, my voice surprisingly steady. Michael raised an eyebrow, a flicker of surprise crossing his face. Do you? He asked, his tone skeptical. I nodded. Yes, you've made your priorities clear. I turned to leave, the city lights blurring through the rain-streaked glass. 200,000. It was a lot of money, but it was nothing compared to the investment I'd made in my daughter's life. An investment he could never understand, let alone match. As I walked away, a plan began to form in my mind, a plan that had nothing to do with money and everything to do with love, a plan for Sophia, a plan for Christmas. The rain continued to fall, washing away the sting of Michael's words, leaving only the quiet resolve that settled deep within me. The biting chill of the evening air did little to soothe the burning humiliation. A waiter, Michael had sneered, "You're not fit to be here, James. This is a celebration for family, not staff." His words echoed in my ears, each syllable a fresh wound. I watched them from Michael's terrace, the opulent wedding unfolding below like a scene from a movie. Sophia, radiant in her gown, laughed with guests I didn't recognize. It should have been my proudest moment, watching my little girl marry. Instead, I was an outsider, banished to the periphery of her happiness. I took another sip of the lukewarm champagne, the taste as flat as my spirits. She looks beautiful, I murmured to myself, though bitter taste lingered. The music drifted up, a saccharine waltz that mocked my solitude. I thought about the years I'd toiled, the double shifts, the scrimping and saving. Every penny had been for Sophia, for her education, her ballet classes, the little house I'd struggled to keep over our heads. It was all worth it, I told myself, clutching the glass tighter. But Michael's words, his dismissive tone, chipped away at that conviction. He saw only my present circumstances, the worn suit I wore, the simple life I led. He couldn't see the sacrifices, the invisible scaffolding I had built to support Sophia's dreams. I pulled a small worn notebook from my pocket. Inside were meticulously recorded figures, a testament to my love for Sophia. Tuition fees, dance competition expenses, even the cost of that second-hand cello she'd adored. 17,000, I whispered, tracing the number with my finger. That was just her university education. I flipped through the pages, adding in my mind, the figures blurring into a lifetime of quiet dedication. The caterer passed by with a tray of hors d'oeuvres, their delicate presentation a stark contrast to the weight in my chest. "Care for another glass, sir?" he asked politely. "No, thank you," I reply, my voice rough. I didn't belong here, among the crystal flutes and designer dresses. My place was back in my small apartment, surrounded by the familiar comfort of Sophia's childhood photos. But then a strange calmness settled over me as I continued to add the figures in my notebook. A realization dawned. The numbers were climbing higher, far surpassing what I'd ever imagined. Over 200,000, I muttered, a flicker of something akin to amusement in my eyes. The cost of raising Sophia, of nurturing her talents and aspirations, it dwarfed the lavish display unfolding below. Michael, with his ostentatious wealth, hadn't even come close. His wedding, his grand gesture of love, was a mere fraction of what I'd already given. He thinks he's bought her happiness, I said to myself, the words barely a whisper. He thinks he can just waltz in and erase everything I've done. I closed the notebook, a small smile playing on my lips. He didn't understand. He didn't understand the depth of a father's love, the years of silent sacrifice that went unnoticed, unappreciated. He saw only the surface, the waiter, the outsider. He couldn't comprehend the true value of what I'd given. I glanced down at the wedding reception again. Sophia was now dancing with Michael, her face alight with joy. My heart ached with a complex mix of emotions, pride, sadness, and a growing resolve. She deserves to be happy, I murmured, the bitterness fading, and I would ensure her happiness in my own way, on my own terms. Michael's money, his grand gestures, they were fleeting. My love, my unwavering support, that was the true inheritance I'd given Sophia, and that was something he could never take away. I folded the notebook and tucked it back into my pocket. The cool evening breeze felt refreshing now, a welcome change from the stifling atmosphere of the terrace. I knew what I had to do. This wasn't the end. It was a new beginning. A plan began to form in my mind, a quiet, subtle plan, as I watched the fireworks begin to explode over the lavish wedding below. They were beautiful, no doubt, but they were just momentary sparks. My plan, however, would have a much longer, more lasting impact. I turned and walked away from the festivities, a newfound sense of purpose in my stride. The villa, the wedding, Michael's petty insults, they were all fading into the background. Something bigger, something more meaningful, was on the horizon, and I wouldn't need a tuxedo or a fancy title to achieve it. Christmas Eve, the silence of my apartment pressed in, amplifying the hollowness I felt. Michael, that man, had called me a waiter, not good enough for his precious wedding. He'd actually had the nerve to suggest I stick to serving drinks, not mingling with his distinguished guests. Your presence would be inappropriate, James, he'd said, his voice dripping with condescension. Sophia understands. But Sophia didn't understand. Her tearful eyes had pleaded with me to stay, to ignore Michael's cruelty. Dad, please, she'd whispered, clutching my hand, but I couldn't. My own daughter's wedding, and I was being treated like staff. I couldn't stomach it, so I left. Left them to their opulent celebration, their 5-tiered cake, their champagne fountains. I walked out and haven't spoken to either of them since. Now here I sat, staring at the old photo album spread across my coffee table. Pictures of Sophia, from her first wobbly steps to her high school graduation. Each one a reminder of the years I'd poured my life into hers. The late nights waiting tables, the double shifts I pulled to pay for her dance classes, the worn-out shoes I refused to replace so she could have that pretty dress she wanted. It all added up, more than just memories. It added up to cold, hard cash. I grabbed a notepad and started scribbling, a strange calmness settling over me. The down payment on the house, her college tuition, the car I helped her buy, the numbers started to climb, growing larger with each entry. The seed of an idea, a small, quiet defiance, began to take root in my mind. The mortgage on this modest apartment, a sacrifice so she could have a better life than I did growing up. That's what stung the most. Michael, with his inherited wealth, his condescending airs, looking down on me for working hard, for providing for my daughter. He wouldn't understand the value of a dollar earned, of a life built on honest labor. I kept calculating the summer trips we took, the Christmas presents I scrimped and saved for. Even the small things, the ice cream cones, the movie tickets, the countless meals I cooked after a long shift. Each one a testament to the love I had for my daughter, a love Michael, with all his money, could never comprehend. The total was staggering, more than I'd ever realized. And then it hit me. This amount, it dwarfed Michael's lavish wedding expenses. All that pomp and circumstance, the condescending remarks, the opulent display of wealth. It was a fraction of what I had invested in Sophia and her future. The realization washed over me, not with bitterness, but with a quiet sense of vindication. He thought he was better than me. He thought his money made him superior. He was wrong, dead wrong. My wealth wasn't in my bank account. It was in the life I'd built for my daughter, the sacrifices I'd made, the love I'd poured into her every single day. A sudden ring shattered the silence. My heart leapt. It was Sophia. Hesitantly, I answered. "Dad," her voice trembled, "I miss you." A wave of emotion washed over me, relief, sadness, a flicker of anger. "I miss you too, sweetheart," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "I made a mistake," she continued, her voice choked with tears. "Michael, he's not who I thought he was." "What did he do?" I asked, already knowing the answer. There was a long pause, filled with choked sobs. He said some terrible things about you. About us, I know, Sophia," I said softly. I heard. Another silence stretched between us, heavy with unspoken words. "Dad," she finally whispered, "I need you. I don't know what to do." My heart ached for her. My little girl, lost and confused, trapped in a world of wealth she never asked for. "It's okay, Sophia," I said, my voice firm. "I'm here. I'll always be here for you. Can I come see you?" She asked tentatively. "Of course, sweetheart," I replied. Any time. As I hung up the phone, a sense of peace settled over me. I knew what I had to do. I wouldn't let Michael's arrogance, his petty insults, define my relationship with my daughter. I would find a way. I would help her navigate this mess, reclaim her life, and understand the true meaning of wealth, the kind that couldn't be measured in dollars and cents. This Christmas, the greatest gift wouldn't be found under a tree, but in the unwavering bond between a father and his daughter. And Michael, he could keep his money. I had something far more valuable.